Boom! Hey, how you doing? I'm Thundercloud. Here at Chillin Tuesday at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame, under the water, under the sea. No, I'm just playing games. It's the 27th of August. Yes, my mum, she calls me James, washing away the garbage, leaving rainbows after it rains. Yeah, well, Chillin Tuesday. Let's begin with the Yarra weather report. Got up to 21.8 today here in Yarra. Lovely, that's balmy, that's really warm for winter. It's currently 13.1. Overnight we're heading down to 10 and tomorrow's max will be 21. But it's going to be windy. Yes, it sure is. All right, let's begin with acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which I broadcast and moving on with the show. Right. I got one for you first. This is one I wrote myself this morning. It's about, I guess, grief, getting over grief, really. Focus on the loss, and the result is grief. Water can't be held for long in your hand. That's a fact, not a belief. On every one the winds blow. You cannot hold the wind, so let it go. Suffering happens in your mind. Everything is healed in time. Except when you constantly focus on the past. To grow, we need contrast, plus good times don't always last. And the kind of person you are depends on your attitude. No one's mad at you. Have gratitude, and please do not be rude. Well, what have I got for you tonight at Chillin Tuesday? Well, it's Banjo Paterson's 1897 poetry. And also in 1897, although Banjo Paterson didn't write a lot of poetry in 1897, he did write a review of a book, Where the Dead Men Lie, by Barcroft Boake. And this was a collection of his verse that was put out in that year. So I'll be reading some Barcroft Boake poetry. Boake poetry, yes, I will be reading Boake poetry to you tonight. Only 3 of his poems, but they're absolutely gorgeous. Well, interesting. Both of them, 3 of them, the first one and the last one are sort of about death, but in the Never Never in the West. And his visuals are really lovely. And the last one I'll be reading is one about love. And anyway, I'm going to have a sip of my peppermint tea here in my Australian Poetry Hall of Fame mug, which are available online and also here from the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame in Yarra. So to kick off the show tonight with Banjo Paterson, this is The Wreck of the Golfer. And it's about, it's quite a sad story about a golfer who took his daughter golfing, got hit on the head by a golf ball and died for that. Anyway, let's go. The Wreck of the Golfer. It was the Bondi golfing man, drove off from the golf house tee, and he had taken his little daughter to bear him company. "Oh, father, why do you swing the club and flourish it such a lot?" "To watch it fly o'er the fences high." And he tried with a brassy shot. "Oh, father, why did you hit the fence? Just there where the brambles twine?" And the father, he answered never a word, but he got on the green in 9. "Oh, father, hark! From behind those trees, what dismal yells arrive?" "'Tis a man, I ween, on the second green, and I've landed him with my drive." "Oh, father, why does the poor Chinese fall down on his knees and cry?" "He taketh me for his excellency, and he thinks once hit, twice shy." And so on they fared to the water hole, and he drove with a lot of dash. But the balls full soon in the dread lagoon fell down with a woeful splash. "Oh, father, why do you beat the sand till it flies like the carded wool?" And the father, he answered never a word, for his heart was much too full. "Oh, father, why are they shouting for and screaming so lustily?" But the father, he answered never a word. A pallid corpse was he. For a well-swung drive to the back of his head had landed and laid him low. Lord, save us all from a fate like this when next to the links we go. And that was published in the Sydney Mail on the 4th of September 1897. Now, the next thing that Banjo Paterson wrote, or that was published by Banjo Paterson, was a review of a book by Barcroft Henry Thomas Boake, born 1866 and died in 1892. He didn't live very old at all, did he? No. He was a contributor to the Bulletin under the pen name Sir Kingle. His collected work was not published until 5 years after his death, and Banjo Paterson greatly admired his verses, and I'll be reading out 3 of them here. So there's a review of Barcroft Boake by Banjo Paterson. The only Barcroft Boake book that I've got is Jack's Last Muster, and this was a republication of Barcroft Boake's work by Curry O'Neill in 1981 by Lloyd O'Neill Proprietary Limited in South Yarra, Victoria. The first one I'm going to read you of Barcroft Boake is From the Far West. "'Tis a song of the Never Never Land, set to the tune of a scorching gale, on the sand hills red, when the grasses dead loudly rustle and bow the head to the breath of its dusty hail, where the cattle trample a dusty pad across the never-ending plain, and come and go with muttering low, in the time when the rivers cease to flow and the drought king holds his reign, when the fiercest piker who ever turned, with lowered head in defiance proud, grown gaunt and weak, release doth seek in vain from the depths of the slimy creek his sepulchre and shroud. His requiem sung by an insect host, born of the pestilential air, that seethe and swarm in hideous form, where the stagnant waters lie thick and warm, and fever lurks in his lair, where a placid thirst-provoking lake clear in the flashing sunlight lies, but the stockman knows no water flows, where the shifting mirage comes and goes like a spectral paradise. And crouched in the saltbush sickly shade, murmurs to heaven a piteous prayer. "O God, must I prepare to die?" And gazing up at the brazen sky, reads his death warrant there. Gaunt, slinking dingoes snap and snarl, watching his slowly ebbing breath. Crows are flying, hoarsely crying, burial service o'er the dying, foul harbingers of death. Full many a man has perished there, whose bones gleam white from the waste of sand, who left no name on the scroll of fame, yet died in his tracks as well, became a son of that desert land. Wow, that's beautiful, isn't it? That is really, I like that. Sad, and of course, very sad. But yeah, a beautiful poem all the same. Hey, speaking of beautiful poems all the same, I've just released Thunderzine #1. And you can only get this by contacting me directly, by emailing me on oneenglish1@gmail.com or coming in here to the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. It's only $5 plus postage, and I can mail it out to you. It's Thunderzine #1. There's only 100 copies made, and there'll only ever be 100 copies made. So get it now. Right. The next one I've got for you is Where the Dead Men Lie. Out on the wastes of the Never Never, that's where the dead men lie. There where the heat waves dance forever, that's where the dead men lie. That's where the earth's loved sons are keeping endless tryst, not the west wind sweeping. Feverish pinions can wake their sleeping, out where the dead men lie. Where brown summer and death have mated, that's where the dead men lie. Loving with fiery lust unsated, that's where the dead men lie. Out where the grinning skulls bleach whitely under the saltbush sparkling brightly, out where the wild dogs chorus nightly, that's where the dead men lie. Deep in the yellow flowing river, that's where the dead men lie. Under the banks where the shadows quiver, that's where the dead men lie. Where the platypus twists and doubles, leaving a train of tiny bubbles, rid at last of their earthly troubles, that's where the dead men lie. East and backward, pale faces turning, that's how the dead men lie. Gaunt arms stretched with a voiceless yearning, that's how the dead men lie. Oft in the fragrant hush of nooning, hearing again their mothers crooning, wrapped for an eye in a dreamful swooning, that's how the dead men lie. Only the hand of night can free them, that's when the dead men fly. Only the frightened cattle see them, see the dead men go by. Cloven hoofs beating out one measure, bidding the stockman, no leisure. That's when the dead men take their pleasure. That's when the dead men fly. Ask too the never sleeping drover, he sees the dead pass by. Hearing them call their friends the plover, hearing the dead men cry, seeing their faces stealing, hearing their laughter pealing, watching their grey forms wheeling, round where the cattle lie. Strangled by thirst and fierce privation, that's how the dead men lie. Out on Moneygrub's farthest station, that's how the dead men lie. Hard-faced grey beards, youngsters callow, some mounds cared for, some left fallow, some deep downed yet others shallow, some having but the sky. Moneygrub, as he sips his claret, looks with complacent eye down at his watch chain, 18 carat, there in his club, hard by. Reeks not that every link is stamped with names of the men whose limbs are cramped with too long lying on a grave mould camped with death where the dead men lie. Wow, what a great poem, hey? Where the Dead Men Lie by Barcroft Boake. Okay, events here at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. Well, as you know, every Wednesday night there's a Wednesday Words Open Mic, and you're welcome to join us here in the Seahorse Medicine Cafe. And as the weather warms up, we'll move out into the main auditorium, of course. That's every Wednesday night. On Saturday mornings from 8 till 12:30, we have the Yarra market here inside in the auditorium, and it's very cheap to have a table here. You can sell whatever you want to sell if it's within reason. Yeah, you can get it in the door probably. So Yarra Market every Saturday morning. Coming up on the 21st of September, we've got a concert by Fiore Musicali, yes. Miss Casa Buenos Aires, something like that. Anyway, stay tuned and I'll put the link in the description and get your ticket soon. Right, the last one. What have we got here? This is a song by Barcroft Boake, and it's a love song, and it's a love poem, a love song. I don't know what it is, but it's a really beautiful poem. But that's all I care. It's just a really, I don't know. It's lovely. I really liked it. Just I gave it a thumbs up. I give it a heart. Yeah. Now, if you like this, you have to give this a thumbs up. All right. If you like what you've heard so far of Barcroft Boake, give it a thumbs up in the description. And if you're not a subscriber, click on subscribe so you get notified when I'm giving you new poetry from these wonderful Australian poets. All right, a song by Barcroft Boake. I've a kiss from a warm lover than maiden of earth can be. She blew it up to the skies above her, and now it has come to me. From the far away it has come today, with the breath of the old salt sea. She laughed and lay on a lazy billow, far away on the deep. Who had gathered the froth for my lady's pillow, gathered a sparkling heap, and the ocean's cry was a lullaby that cradled my love to sleep. Far away on the blue Pacific, there doth my lady roam, that is oft times gay, but as oft terrific. Her jewels are beads of foam in a coral cave where a blue-green wave keeps guard, is my lady's home. She claps her hands and a henchman hurries west on the sunset sheen. 'Tis he who comes when a mist rack scurries, skirting the deep ravine, and my heart is stirred by the loving word he carries me from my queen. A drop distilled from a lotus flower that is the magic key to unlock the cage, and my soul has power to gather itself and flee at my love's behest, where she waits her guest in a palace beneath the sea. Joy is ours that is almost anguish, pain that is almost sweet. We kiss, and the ocean creatures languish jealously at our feet. The sight grows dim and the senses swim when I and my lady greet. There to dream while the soul is swooning under a woven spell, hushed to sleep by a tender crooning, learnt from the ocean's swell, there to rest on a jeweled, there to rest on her jeweled breast, to love and be loved as well. Yeah, wow. Oh, it's beautiful. I'm all goopy about that one. I'm so romantic, I am. Oh, yes, I am. I'm so romantic. That one just gets me. Anyway. All right, back to Banjo Paterson and 1897 now. This is by the grey Gulf water. Far to the northward there lies a land, a wonderful land that the winds blow over, and none may fathom nor understand the charm it holds for the restless rover. A great grey chaos, a land half made, where endless space is and no life stirreth, and the soul of a man will recoil afraid from the sphinx-like visage that nature weareth. But old Dame Nature, though scornful, craves her dole of death and her share of slaughter. Many indeed are the nameless graves where her victims sleep by the grey Gulf water. Slowly and slowly those grey streams glide, drifting along with languid motion, lapping the reed beds on either side, wending their way to the northern ocean. Grey are the plains where the emus pass, silent and slow with their staid demeanour. Over the dead men's grave, the grass maybe is waving a trifle greener. Down in the world where men toil and spin, Dame Nature smiles, as man's hand has taught her. Only the dead men her smiles can win in the great lone land by the grey Gulf water. For the strength of man is an insect's strength in the face of that mighty plain and river, and the life of a man is a moment's length to the life of the stream that will run forever. And so it cometh they take no part in small world worries. Each hardy rover rideth abroad and is light of heart, with the plains around and the blue sky over. And up in the heavens the brown lark sings the songs that the strange wild land has taught her. Full of thanksgiving her sweet song sings, and I wish I were back by the grey Gulf water. A little bit of a melancholy song, missing the grey Gulf, nostalgic song, I guess, more than anything, isn't it? Yeah. Well, the next one's really quite interesting, not only for its rhyming structure. It's a sort of an A, B, C, C, B kind of a rhyming structure with two short lines and a long line, and two short lines and a long line. But it's called the Ballad of Calliope. Now, the Ballad of Calliope, the incident mentioned in the poem occurred on the 15th of March, 1899, when a violent hurricane battered the Samoan Islands, causing the loss in the harbour of Apia of 4 vessels and the beaching of 2 others. The Calliope alone fought a way out to the open sea and survived the storm. The Ballad of the Calliope. By the far Samoan shore, where the league-long rollers pour, all the wash of the Pacific on the coral-guarded bay, riding lightly at their ease in the calm of tropic seas, 3 great nations' warships at their anchors proudly lay, riding lightly head to wind with the coral reefs behind. 3 German and 3 Yankee ships were mirrored in the blue, and on one ship, unfurled, was the flag that rules the world, for on the old Calliope the flag of England flew. When the gentle offshore breeze that had scarcely stirred the trees dropped down to utter stillness, and the glass began to fall away across the main, lowered the coming hurricane, and far away to seaward hung the cloud rack like a pall. If the word had passed around, let us move to safer ground, let us steam away to seaward when this tale were not to tell. But each captain seemed to say, if the others stay, I stay. And they lingered at their moorings till the shades of evening fell. Then the cloud rack neared them fast, and there came a sudden blast, and the hurricane came leaping down 1,000 miles of main. Like a lion on its prey, leapt the storm fiend on the bay. And the vessels shook and shivered as their cables felt the strain. As the surging seas came by that were running mountain high, the vessels started dragging, drifting slowly to the lee, and the darkness of the night hid the coral reefs from sight, and the captains dared not risk the chance to grope their way to sea. In the dark, they dared not shift. They were forced to wait and drift. All hands stood by uncertain. Would the anchors hold or no? But the men on deck could see, if a chance of hope might be, there was little chance of safety for the men who were below. Through the long, long night of dread, while the storm raged overhead, they were waiting by their engines with the furnace fires a-roar. So they waited staunch and true, though they knew, and well they knew, they must drown like rats imprisoned if the vessel touched the shore. When the grey dawn broke at last and the long, long night was past, while the hurricane redoubled lest its prey should steal away, on the rocks all smashed and strewn were the German vessels thrown, while the Yankees, swamped and helpless, drifted shorewards down the bay. Then at last spoke Captain Kane. All our anchors are in vain, and the Germans and the Yankees, they have drifted to the lee. Cut the cables at the bow, we must trust the engines now. Give us steam and let her have it, lads, we'll fight her out to sea. And the answer came with cheers from the stalwart engineers, from the grim and grimy firemen at the furnaces below, and above the sullen roar of the breakers on the shore came the throbbing of the engines as they laboured to and fro. If the strain should find a flaw, should a bolt or rivet draw, then God help them, for the vessel were a plaything in the tide. With a face of honest cheer, quoth an English engineer, I will answer for the engines that were built on old Thames side, for the stays and stanchions taut, for the rivets truly wrought, for the valves that fit their faces as a glove should fit their hand. Give her every ounce of power. If we make her not an hour, then it's way enough to steer her, and we'll drive her from the land. Like a foam flake tossed and thrown, she could barely hold her own, while the other ships all helplessly were drifting to the lee. Through the smother and the rout, the Calliope steamed out, and they cheered her from the Trenton that was foundering in the sea. Aye, drifting shoreward there, all helpless as they were, their vessel hurled upon the reefs as weed ashore is hurled, without a thought of fear. The Yankees raised a cheer that English-speaking folk should echo round the world. And that was published in the Antipodean in 1897. Righto, so the next one I've got for you is Saltbush Bill's second fight. Now, if you remember from Saltbush Bill, the first fight, he was a cagey drover who would do anything to get his cattle fed in the drought. And he got onto some squatter's run and he fought all day just so that his sheep could get fed while he was fighting the squatter. And then he moved on. Well, this is Saltbush Bill's second fight. And he's just as cagey. You just have a listen and see what happens in the end. The news came down on Castlereagh and went to the world at large that 20,000 travelling sheep with Saltbush Bill in charge were drifting down from a dried out run to ravage the Castlereagh, and the squatters swore when they heard the news and wished they were well away. For the name and fame of Saltbush Bill were over the countryside, for the wonderful way he fed his sheep and the dodges and tricks he tried. He would lose his way on a main stock route and stray to the squatter's grass. He would come to a run with the boss away and swear he had leave to pass. And back of it all and behind it all, as well as the squatters knew, if he had to fight, he would fight all day, so long as his sheep got through. But this is the story of Stingy Smith, the owner of Hard Times Hill, and the way that he chanced on a fighting man to reckon with Saltbush Bill. 'Twas Stingy Smith on his stockyard sat and prayed for an early spring when he stared at sight of a clean-shaven tramp who walked with a jaunty swing. For a clean-shaved tramp with a jaunty walk a-swinging along the track is a rare a thing as a feathered frog on the desolate roads out back. So the tramp he made for the traveller's hut, and he asked could he camp the night. But Stingy Smith had a bright idea, and he said to him, "Can you fight?" "Why, what's the game?" said the clean-shaved tramp, and he looked him up and down. "If you want a battle, get off that fence and I'll kill you for £5. But boss, you'd better not fight with me. It wouldn't be fair nor right. I'm Stiffener Joe from the Rocks Brigade. I killed a man in a fight. I served 2 years for it, fair and square, and now I'm tramping back to look for a peaceful, quiet life away on the outside track. Oh, it's not myself, but a drover chap," said Stingy Smith with glee. "A bullying fellow called Saltbush Bill, and you are the man for me. He's on the road with his hungry sheep, and he's certain to raise a row, for he's bullied the whole of Castlereagh till he's got them under cow. Just pick a quarrel and raise a fight and leather him good and hard, and I'll take care that his wretched sheep don't wander a half a yard. It's a £5 job if you belt him well, do anything short of kill, for there isn't a beak in the Castlereagh will fine you for Saltbush Bill." "I'll take the job," said the fighting man. "As hot as this cove appears, he'll stand no chance with a bloke like me who's lived in the game for years, for he's maybe learnt in a boxing school and sparred a round or so. But I've fought all hands in a 10-foot ring each night in a travelling show. They earned £1 if they stayed 3 rounds, and they tried for it every night in a 10-foot ring. Ah, that's the game that teaches a bloke to fight. For they'd rush and clinch it, was Dublin rules, and we drew no colour line. And they all tried hard for to earn £1, but they got no pound of mine. If I saw no chance in the opening, I'd slog at their wind and wait till an opening came, and it always came, and I'd settle them sure as fate. Left on the ribs and right on the draw, and when the chance comes, make sure, and it's there a professional bloke like me gets home on an amateur. For it's my experience every day, and I make no doubt it's yours, that a third-class pro is an overmatch for the best of the amateurs. "Oh, take your swag to the traveller's hut," said Smith, "for you waste your breath. You've a first-class chance if you lose the fight of taking your man to death. I'll tell the cook you're to have your grub and see that you eat your fill and come to the scratch all fit and well to leather this Saltbush Bill." 'Twas Saltbush Bill and his travelling sheep were wending their weary way on the main stock route through the hard times run on their 6-mile stage a day. And he strayed a mile from the main stock route and started to feed along when Stingy Smith came up. Bill said that the route was surveyed wrong. And he tried to prove the sheep had rushed and strayed from their camp at night. But the fighting man, he kicked Bill's dog. And of course, that meant a fight. So they sparred and fought and they shifted ground and never a sound was heard but the thudding fists on the brawny ribs and the second's muttered word, till the fighting man shot home his left on the ribs with a mighty clout, and his face flashed up with the half-arm blow, and Saltbush Bill went out. He fell face down and towards the blow, and their hearts with fear were filled, for he lay as still as a fallen tree, and they thought that he must be killed. So Stingy Smith and the fighting man, they lifted him from the ground and sent to home for a brandy flask, and they slowly fetched him round. But his head was bad and his jaw was hurt. In fact, he could scarcely speak. So they let him spell till he got his wits, and he camped on the run a week, while the travelling sheep went here and there wherever they liked to stray, till Saltbush Bill was fit once more for the track to the Castle Ray. Then Stingy Smith, he wrote a note and gave it to the fighting man. It was writ to the boss of the neighbouring run, and thus the missive ran. "The man with this is a fighting man, one Stiffner Joe by name. He came near murdering Saltbush Bill, and I found it a costly game. But it's worth your while to employ the chap, for there isn't the slightest doubt you'll have no trouble from Saltbush Bill while this man hangs about." But an answer came by the next week's mail with the news that might well appall. "The man you sent with a note is not a fighting man at all. He's shaved his beard and he's cut his hair, but I spotted him at a look. He's Tom Devine, who has worked for years for Saltbush Bill as a cook." Bill coached him up in the fighting yarn and taught him the tale by rote. And they shammed to fight, and then they got your grass and divided your £5 note. 'Twas a clean take-in, and you'll find it wise. 'Twill save you a lot of pelf. When next you hire a fighting man, just fight him around yourself. And the teamsters out on the Castle Ray, when they meet with a week of rain, and the wagon sinks to its axle tree deep down in the black soil plain, when the bullocks wade in a sea of mud and strain at the load of wool, and the cattle dogs at the bullocks' heels are biting to make them pull, when the offside driver flays the team and curses them while he flogs, and the air is thick with the language used and the clamour of men and dogs, the teamsters say as they pause to rest and moisten each hairy throat, they wish they could swear like Stingy Smith when he read that neighbour's note. Wow. Good old, Saltbush Bill got the best of old Stingy Smith, didn't he? Hey, have I told you about the Australian Poetry Film Festival? Look, it's open for submissions right now, and you've got about a month to get them in left, but then there will be late ones as well. And the we'll be showing and announce the winners in November at the Poets on the Mountain Festival. Now, let me tell you about the Poets on the Mountain Festival. It's a community-focused event that brings together poets from across Australia to foster creativity and sharpen their connections with each other. It will be a diverse program featuring poetry readings, workshops, and panel discussions, as well as the Australian Poetry Film Contest and the New South Wales Bush Poetry Championship. It's a unique and innovative idea, and it's to offer a platform for artistic expression and cultural exchange for poets and the local community. Well, what are the benefits? Well, they're going to be great. They're going to contribute to the local economy. There'll be at least 100 people, 200 people in town. And that means, maybe $100,000 will be spent at least in town that weekend. As well as that, it will create a sense of belonging and bring together people from all over the place. The future impact of this Poets on the Mountain Festival, which is in November, is that it will enhance the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame's reputation and bring new visitors to Yarra, but also support and nurture and create new upcoming poets. So that's really important. So by hosting this festival, we'll not only enrich our community, but we'll also solidify the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame as a cultural cornerstone. So that's the Poets on the Mountain Festival, November 14th through to the 17th. Keep a lookout for the updated information about that. And here's a poem that I wrote for Poets on the Mountain Festival. In shadowed valleys where mountains rise, a gathering of voices beneath the skies, poets from far and wide, their hearts aflame, to share their words, a poetic game. A festival of verse, a mountain stage, inspiring minds from every age. A community united, bound by rhyme, a celebration of written line. With funding aid, we'll soar to heights, igniting passions, shining lights, connecting souls through words untold, a tapestry worn of stories bold. From shadowed valleys to mountain peaks, our voices ride a journey we seek to strengthen bonds and spread the art, a poet's heart, a shining star. That's the Poets on the Mountain Festival. Now, look, I'm currently raising money for the Australian Poetry Film Contest, and you'll see in the description down there, there's a GoFundMe link. So if you could donate to the Australian Poetry Film Contest fundraising so that we've got good money to give away as prizes to the filmmakers and poets who really do deserve prizes for what they've done. So if you can help, just go to the link in the description, and if you can't send it that way, you can also always send it by PayPal, which is also down there in the link in the description. So that's it for the Chillin Tuesday here on this 27th of August 2024. And I will be back next week and tomorrow night with Wednesday words as well. All right. Well, thank you very much, and a good night, good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is where you are. Just be happy.